Welcome back to Issues and Answers. I'm talking with Joseph Kurt, and he is with the Charleston Tea Party. And I've heard a lot about the Tea Party, and I want to hear it firsthand. And Joseph is doing a pretty good job in educating us. Before we went to the break, I was talking about big business and the fact that they pay, you're saying they pay some 35%. But in other ways, in other places or in other particular areas, they are paying fewer dollars than even their workers.
In the case of
taxes.
Yeah, in the case of taxes for rich individuals, you have to look at the type of taxes you're talking about. Because if you say they pay less taxes, numerically they pay more, obviously, they make more, their tax bill is higher. Warren Buffett pays capital gains tax, and capital gains tax is kept low to encourage investment. Capital gains tax is money paid off of investment funds.
So he wants to pay.
He does want to pay, and there's no reason he can't. There's an account at the IRS. You can send a check.
I've already heard that about the account where the rich people can put in as much money as they want to.
Right.
But we want it by law.
Well, see, that's
everybody
the thing.
else is governed by law.
They are governed by law too.
You cannot even the scriptures talk about the fact that you must have Caesar, you must have someone who is the law.
Right, but why is the capital gains rate lower? Why is the capital gains rate lower than what Warren Buffett's secretary pays? Because obviously Warren Buffett's secretary pays or is paid handsomely to get into the 28.
Well, the man says I need to pay more, and other rich folks say they need to pay more.
Sure.
And now there are others getting on the bandwagon with that same thing. And
well,
before,
a lot of.
And my time is getting. I wish I had an hour.
I wish I could. Yeah, I could go ahead.
I mean, I need you for an hour, but I want everybody to know that my guest here did as I did with him. He looked me up on the internet and found out that I had a party for President Obama. So he knew what he was going to get when he came here, and he came anyway.
I didn't have a problem with that.
And you really are a neat person. But you know,
thank you.
Some folks believe that, I really mean this seriously, that the Tea Party, Charleston Tea Party or other chapters, are in fact racist. And that's a big problem for us because the party is wanting not only the Tea Party, but the Conservative Republican Party and even the Liberal Republicans are trying to take away many of the things that sustain the lives of African Americans and other ethnic groups in this country.
Okay.
Is the party that insensitive?
No, absolutely not. And the thing is, insensitivity is one subject, but let me cover this race thing for a minute because, and I don't mean this race thing, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
The accusation of racism has been leveled at the Republican Party for a long time, especially conservatives in the Republican Party. So when the conservatives in a Republican Party become their own movement, it's a carryover from what was already there. The thing about conservatism is it works for everybody. There's no reason an African American or a Hispanic American or an Asian American or a Caucasian American can't go out and be successful on their own by utilizing their own entrepreneurship and initiative. There's nothing to say that we want to hold those people back.
But you know, I don't know about that because I'm concerned about civil rights law. You know, you got to understand
No,
this.
sure, I understand.
Civil rights law is responsible for me keeping a roof over my head. Title 8 of the Civil Rights Law has to do with housing. Title 7 of the Civil Rights Law has to do with my ability to get a job. Executive 29446, I believe, has the authority to make sure that I can get government contracts and I'm paid fairly. I walk around in a world as a minority in this country.
Sure.
Walk around in this country, in this world, knowing that civil rights laws cover me and protect me. Why would anybody want to take away my rights under the law?
Sure.
Especially in a country that has been very, very treacherous when it comes to treating black people fairly.
This is something you said in the beginning before we met in the interview. And 50 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, you marched with Dr. Martin Luther King in Pennsylvania.
Oh, you read that too?
I did read that too. The laws were there, right? Did the Civil Rights Act remove one racist? Did it change the mind of one racist human being?
Yeah, because there were a lot of racists who turned civil rights oriented and marched with King.
The civil rights movement did, but the legislation, when it comes out, when the government says you can no longer do this, that doesn't change the mind of a single racist.
Well, the EEOC got a lot of cases, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission got a lot of cases and won a lot of cases where people were paid, back pay and everything else because they were discriminated against by white employers.
But what I'm saying is now, if you look at now, and yes, there was a horrible history of race relations in this country. Nobody's denying that. I grew up with Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I went to a high school that was at least 40% African American. You know, I grew up in a multicultural society. Now, versus then. Do you think there's as much discrimination in this country now by white business owners and white people against black people? And the reason I ask this is because...
Now, I don't know if there's a whole lot, but there certainly still is racism by white people towards blacks.
There's racism, if you want to say there's some racism...
And now Hispanics.
There's racism by black people towards whites. There's racism
but we have no power, so our racism
I would argue, we have no power is not necessarily a racial statement.
Black people have no power.
You have CEOs?
If I'm angry with you, and I don't want you around because of your whiteness, there is not a thing I can do with it. But if you're white, you have the power to take me out of my house, to take me off my job.
If I took away those legislations right now, because you are a hardworking, decent individual, I wouldn't be able to take a thing away from you. Your character matters a lot more than your race, and you've built on that. And what we're saying is that option is available to everybody in this country. The legislation that set up the African American community as separate and needing more assistance, it was great, and it is still great.
Separate and equal.
Well, that's what I'm not saying separate but equal, but what I'm saying is now the opportunity is there, and it is becoming more and more colorblind.
You got to come back.
I will.
And you know what? It is becoming colorblind because we got young people like you walking around.
That's right.
At least somebody can talk to you. Even though we may not agree, at least you talk about it.
I would love to come back and expand on this.
We're going to have my friend here come back soon.
Sure.
And really appreciate you being with us today.
Not a problem.
The Charleston Tea Party. And he is Joseph Kurt, and he's enlightened us in a lot of ways on what's going on. He's made it seem like it's more than just a big giant out there trying to rip us off and kill us. So here's his address if you'd like to ask more questions. And I'm sure you'd be happy to answer them as best you can.
I actually read my emails and answer them on the air on my show.
All right,
so.
And he does have a talk show. And of course, with Issues and Answers, we're always ready to accept your ideas. And we encourage you to contact us so that we can bring you the kinds of things that you would be interested in. And again, we would be happy to do that. And we'll do it right away. So there you have it. This has been Issues and Answers. I'm Cheryl Harleston.